Aloha, Hawaii, kako. Welcome. Today is October 10th, 2016. I am the United States of America candidate for Congress for District 2, and I really hope you all vote for me. Let me get straight to the point. I am a landowner on the island of Oahu and the Big Island. I actually own more land on Oahu than the Big Island, where the Big Island is fairly cheaper. My family owns 82 acres right in the heart of Aiea overlooking Pearl Harbor. We were blessed. That's nothing compared to my neighbors, Waimalu Holdings. They own 300 plus acres, and definitely nothing to what Bishop Estates own. Hundreds, thousands, and maybe thousands of acres. I don't know. I think it was the Honorable Mark Takai who labeled Aiea the heart of Hawaii. I'm that heart. I'm that beating heart. My American heart is beating, and it's pounding for America and for Hawaii. We own approximately 3 million square feet of land in the Waimalu area. This area was once owned by the kings. This is a very nice, tranquil area with fresh water, caves. I believe that the cave is where the kings hung out at. Waimalu means protected watershed, and now we are part of that protector. They say land is power, so that makes us, it should make us very, very, very powerful. But I'm not very powerful, I don't think. Is that a lie? I'm not sure. Or is it a perception? Or is it because people don't want to accept that I'm a very powerful and influential person? In fact, I got people wanting to steal my land, our land, and power from me. Or people who don't want to accept my authority and would rather give it up to a heathen Hindu. That's exactly where the problem lies. I'm gonna do a land and power skit, and this will be done with my son Philip KAAIHUE. Come here, Philip. Please join me. This is about a Christian mother who was raised as a Christian, whose grown child, now of marrying age, returns home from a long trip with his fiancée and wants to marry and settle to build a home for his future wife and family. It's a simple and short one, but there is a lesson to be learned. Let us begin.
Aloha, Mother. I have returned.
Aloha, my child. I'm so happy to see you. You returned home after all these months. I hope you had a wonderful time at Yale University.
Yes, Mother, I did, and I have wonderful news to tell you.
Oh, yes? What is it, my grown child?
I have found love, and I want to marry her.
I'm so happy for you, and I will finally be a proud grandmother. So tell me about her. Where did you meet? What does she look like? What do her parents do? And did she graduate from college too?
Yes, Mom, she is beautiful, very beautiful. She makes my heart beat loudly. She has brown, long hair and a nice golden tan. Her parents both work as attorneys for the government in India. Yes, she graduated from college and majored in political science. She wants to be a lawyer too.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Did you say India? So what is her faith? Does she believe in God?
Yes, Mother, she does believe in God and 10,000 lords and gods, including Lord Shiva. She believes that karma rules the universe, and she's always happy and peaceful. She's a Hindu. She believes in Krishna. She sings and dances Hare Krishna all the time. Check it out, Mom. She got me doing it too. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. She sings so beautifully, Mom. You got to hear her sing.
Son, I am very disappointed and angry. What did I teach you about marrying outside of the Lord?
But Mom, she loves me and I love her too. So Mom, but before she marries me, I'd really would like to have some of the property subdivided and deeded to us before we get married, so we can build a family home.
I love you dearly. You are the joy of my life, and you are my living inspiration. However, my child, you put an undue burden upon me. What did I tell you about marrying outside of the Lord? This is very disturbing to me. She does not believe what we believe in. She does not believe in the one true God, Jehovah. She violates God's first commandment. She is an idolater, my son. I cannot at this time give you the land that you are requesting for. I'm sorry.
Why, Mother? Why do you not bless our relationship?
We are children of the one true God. I cannot share our wealth with heathens. That would be a threat to our future, to your future, to my grandchildren's future, to America's future. My father forbids it. His father and father's forefathers would forbid such a deplorable woman to enter into our kingdom.
I don't understand, Mother. How would it be a threat?
I don't expect you to understand everything, my son. But remember, I am older. I have seen the hate and the wickedness of this world, and it is very real. I have seen the greed, the extortion, the lies, the wars of our country. We have fought hard for our American country, founded by forefathers who believe in God Almighty. Many lives were lost fighting other countries so that we can be blessed with this land, this country. And these lands are for the righteous ones, for those that worship God. He that blessed us, the one true God. Have you forgotten the sacrifices we made? And He has blessed us with these lands. You have brought a heathen into our lands, to my house of God, one who violates God's very first commandment and angers Him. Thou shalt not bow down to any other gods. I am sorry, son. I cannot give you what you want at this time. This indeed would be a threat to our future. Your children, my children, your brothers and sisters, our neighbors, our nation, our state, our country, our God will not bless this marriage. And if He will not bless this marriage, I cannot bless this marriage either, my son. I love you. Now go and please make better choices. Remember, you must marry within the Lord.
I am so sorry, Mother. I forgot about God's first commandment. I will tell her to leave, and I will tell her to go back home to her parents. We must not betray our God Most High. I'm so sorry, Mother, for disappointing you. I'm sorry.
It's okay. We learn from our past mistakes and lessons. The Bible is the biggest book ever to be written. Do not turn your back on God. It is He who has blessed us with the lands, for the righteous ones to possess the earth. It is our responsibility, our kuleana, to uphold to God's laws and to respect our American Christian forefathers, of which this country was founded on. We have to respect our parents, your grandfather, James Lee Stenger, and your great-grandfather, Arthur Dallas Stenger II, and great-great-grandfather, Arthur Dallas Stenger I, whom all fought and served in the United States military. They would have given their lives and died for our country, a country founded by those who believed in the one true God and abides by the Bible's 10 commandments. Philip, I love you, Mom.
I love you too, Mom. I'm so sorry for disappointing you. I will find a woman of God, and we will marry.
Thank you, my son. Now go. Make us proud, my son. Go. Now there is a lesson to be learned in that skit. I hope you all learn that I may be the mother in this situation, protecting our lands, but Congress is much bigger. They represent America, and they are protecting all the lands of Hawaii. So when we go to America or to Congress and we ask them for lands, it must be with a righteous heart, one that believes in God. And you will be blessed. I can almost guarantee it. Remember one thing, Hawaii, America. We are who we elect as leaders. Now, we are Hindu and Buddhists. America and Americans ain't going to really help a state, a Hawaii state of citizens, followers, or a nation of followers of heathen supporters. We will not receive its blessings. How can we? You want help, you want support from the American government, you want independence. Why? So you can turn your backs on America? That ain't going to happen. Now, if you're going to turn your backs on God, we need to start acting and behaving like Americans. Hawaiians want their own kingdom. What kind of kingdom are you going to run? Are they going to run a kingdom that worships many false deities like heathens do? One that turns into cannibalism? Are you wanting to restore cannibalism back to Hawaii? I believe Hawaiians ate Captain Cook. They don't teach you that in history, do they? Are you going to be the kind of kingdom or sovereign nation that worships false gods? The kind that worships 10,000 gods? Are you going to be a nation that bites the hands that feed you? Or are you going to bite the hands that protect Hawaii? As in my son's situation, will he bite my hand? Or in my situation with my father, will I bite the hand of my father who feeds me and blesses me? No. I, as an American, would refuse to help a heathen follower and one who disgraces our American Constitution, our forefathers, and our country. And my American brothers, sisters, stand by me. Our American Constitution has been disgraced by Hawaii since statehood, I believe. Hawaii started off on the wrong foot. We had a rise in the Buddhist Empire. And now it's time to restore Christianity, and you wonder why Hawaiians are treated like second-class citizens. We need a balance, the balance of the yin and the yang, or there will be injustices. You rarely elect Christians all these years, and now a heathen pagan Hindu. That is why you have not inherited your kingdom. As in my situation with my son, I cannot bless my son with lands that he is requesting for because of his marriage to an outside believer. Hawaii, are you aware that Tulsi Gabbard is a Hindu? Our forefathers classified it as a heathen religion, and all this hype generated by Tulsi Gabbard's success is contributed mostly by a nation of India, a population of 1.3 billion people that are mostly Hindus. How does this type of a foreign nation affect our American country? Does it affect America? Yes, of course. Where there is hype all around you, we fall victim to the hype, similar to peer pressure. Let's understand something. Hawaii is a population of approximately 1.3 million. America is a population of 323 million. And India's population is 1.3 billion. India has a population of 4 times that of America. If I wanted to be popular within the internet realm and social media, I need to be a Hindu. Many times I wonder, how can Tulsi Gabbard be so popular? It's fueled by the support of India and the 1.3 billion supporters simply because she's a Hindu. We need supreme justices who will read our Constitution and figure out what it says instead of people saying, this is what it should say. Like, for example, with Kim Davis. Do you remember Kim Davis? Let's talk about Kim Davis. And her various supporters are adamant on one point. Her religious freedom has been stripped away. To them, her case is the first step towards putting good Christians in jail for their beliefs. Her refusal to issue marriage licenses to same-sex couples in Kentucky is, in their view, a matter of faith with which the government has no right to intervene. They hang their collective hat on the First Amendment's guarantee of freedom of religion without articulating, let alone differentiating the two co-equal components to that of very freedom. Let us go back to high school civics when discussing the religious freedom portion of the First Amendment. There are not one but 2 clauses we must consider. The commonly understood and cited part, and the one Miss Davis trumpets, is the freedom to worship guarantee. Under that clause, the government isn't allowed to pass any law or take action prohibiting the free exercise of religion. Simply put, the government can't do anything to stop you or anyone else from worshiping God or Buddha or the flying spaghetti monster if that's what your conscience or faith tells you. In Ms. Davis's view, the government through a federal court has overstepped its power by forcing her to act against her religious beliefs and therefore has trodden upon her right of free exercise. This argument falls apart, however, once you take into account the other less commonly understood clause, the Establishment Clause. Prohibits the government from aiding or assisting any religion or religious viewpoint over any others. This was a key point for the founders of our country, who were of diverse faiths and did not want a state religion or even any state-endorsed religions. When people talk about separation of church and state, this is a part of the Constitution that embodies it. The separation has worked well over the past 2¼ centuries. Today, the Baptists have no more right to have their particular beliefs elevated over the Methodists or the Druids, for that matter, by any government official. So what does the Establishment Clause have to do with Kim Davis? It's actually rather straightforward. She is a government employee charged with performing a clerical task, issuing a marriage license. As an employee of the government, the moment she imposed her own personal religious beliefs that only straight couples should be married, she raised an Establishment Clause problem by insisting on applying God's law, or at least her interpretation of it, over the civil law. She gave greater weight by the government to a particular religious viewpoint, namely her own brand of Christianity. This was a plain violation of the Establishment Clause. That, of course, raises another question. If it is a violation, where do Miss Davis's rights to freedom of worship begin and end? The simplest way to think about this is to agree that all of us have the right to worship, but that right ends at the tips of our nose. That is, we have a right to our beliefs, but we don't have the right to impose our views on other members of the public. Everyone's perfectly free to worship as they please, but this freedom also includes not having other people's beliefs interfere with our own participation in civil society. This is even more important when we're talking about government officials, such as public school educators, judges, county clerks, or even congressional members. Such individuals are expected to do their jobs no matter who is appearing before them or under their care. Imagine, for example, that a person of the Quaker faith took a job with the country and then refused to issue gun licenses on grounds it violated her faith. The easy answer here is that she would have no right to do so. If guns are legal in the county, then citizens have a right to apply, and she cannot use her own beliefs to stop others from obtaining a license. In this example, gun owners and non-gun owners alike probably would tell her to find another job where she could function without ethical or religious dilemma. As a public official, it isn't even clear Miss Davis has the same rights as a private citizen to speak out, let alone act in opposition to same-sex marriage as part of her official duties. As the conservative majority of the Supreme Court noted in the case of Garcetti versus Ceballos back in 2006, when public employees make statements pursuant to their official duties, the employees are not speaking as citizens for First Amendment purposes, and the Constitution does not insulate their communications from employer discipline. In other words, Ms. Davis, as an officer of the county, is subject to the Establishment Clause limitations, and precisely because she is a government employee, does not have the right to claim First Amendment protection either for her speech or for her actions based on her faith. It is somewhat surprising that religious freedom advocates what would choose this particular hill to defend. As any judge or constitutional law expert would easily conclude that her behavior violated Establishment Clause principles going back to the very founding of our nation. In doing so, these self-described advocates for religious liberty are in fact showing an alarming disregard and ignorance of some of the bedrock principles around the separation and church and state. A much thornier question arises when private citizens assert they are being compelled to provide services for same-sex couples in violation of their personal belief systems, such as the infamous gay wedding cake example. That is a quandary for another day, one I'm sure will test the boundaries of the two religious freedom clauses. Miss Davis's case, on the other hand, is crystal clear to anyone who appreciates what separation of church and state really means. The vociferous defense of her behavior by some indeed suggests that they aren't really very interested in maintaining this separation at all. Congressional members need to be limited to 6 two-year terms. Politicians are like diapers. They need to be changed every so often for the same reasons. That was a quote. We need to talk openly about the issues. Politicians always say this is the most important election we ever had. World food demand for food is going to double. We need to be focused on better jobs for stronger families. There are too many out of control in government activities. Foreign policies where our friends don't trust us and our enemies are scared of us. The promise of America is something that we need to hang on to. Now let me ask you, will you rise, O children of God, nation of Israel, and be righteous among the unrighteous in the days of the Lord? I would be lying if I told you my name is Angela Stenger, but my name is Angela KAAIHUE. Growing up, I had a German last name, but I had brown eyes and brown hair. My father had blue eyes and light brown hair. I was born in Austin, Texas. Likewise, my father and grandfather, they all believed in the Lord, God Most High, Yahweh or Jehovah and Allah, one God Most High, who had 10 commandments that we are to follow. They read the Bible, and the first commandment, one is not to bow down to any foreign gods. Another commandment is to honor your father and mother. Thou shalt not kill. And at the end of this program, I will explain thou shalt not kill and how it affects our veterans psychologically. I will provide you with a simple answer based from the Bible that will decrease war veterans' suicidal deaths. I have an answer, a unique answer, that I can almost bet no one has ever told you. A godly one that will free your conscience and mind. A simple one. Or you may visit my website at www.KAAIHUEforcongress.com. Or you may email me for the solution, for the simple answer that will ease their minds and lessen their burdens. What's in a name? I've been criticized for being a haole, a white person, a foreigner with a Hawaiian last name. Here's my response to that. What's in a name? A name means nothing. It's the person behind the name. Do you know how many KAAIHUEs I know are nothing but, unfortunately, drug addicts, homeless, or in prison? How many Hawaiians with Hawaiian last names have turned out to be addicts, addicted to welfare, and live in a state of poverty and are actually on a burden on our society? There are many. So I don't understand why so many are intrigued by Hawaiian last name. Having a Hawaiian last name actually hurts my campaign. It can hurt my campaign. That is my married last name, and I kept it like most women do. There are only a few KAAIHUEs that have actually made it really big, as well as another big name Hawaiian with like Duke Kahanamoku. But there are many Hawaiians with a Hawaiian last name, and never will they enter politics or make a name for themselves. In fact, my maiden last name, Stenger, a German last name, I'm proud of it too. It recognizes my last name as a descendant of my grandfather, Arthur Dallas Stenger II, who was a recognized real estate developer in Austin, Texas, an engineer and builder. It's the person behind a name that makes the name. Otherwise, a name simply means nothing. In fact, having a Hawaiian last name, I am more destined to lose because of a Hawaiian last name. When was the last time someone with a Hawaiian last name won big in politics? Take, for example, Duke Aiona. He lost, and he lost big time. He might have lost in numbers by a small margin, but what I mean by big time is that he was a highly favored candidate, a judge, a Christian. Previously, he was a lieutenant governor, and he lost to David Ige. What does that tell you? Maybe it was his Hawaiian last name that he lost, right? I've been criticized for having a Hawaiian last name. You know what? That might cost me my election, like I said. That's not going to stop me, though. I'm here to make a name for my son, who is half Hawaiian, and I'm trying to make a good name for him. And if anyone, KAAIHUE, wants to doubt me, I certainly don't see any of them putting themselves, or are they even qualified to put themselves out in the public's eye for public scrutiny. You have to have some kind of qualifications to be put in front of the cameras, other than being an American citizen and meeting the age requirements of 25 years old. And being a non-felon. No offense to felons out there, I know how it feels because they did that to me. That's called racism, but I fought it like hell. And I will never forget how the racists wrongfully charged me. Having 9 years of a college education is what qualifies me. I'm working on my PhD in civil engineering. Also, that I'm a large parcel land owner and real estate developer, kind of like a wannabe Donald Trump. Those two factors is what qualifies me to be your Congress lady. And the fact that I'm worth more than all of Hawaii's politicians put together. I'm going to talk a little about pastors, churches, and a lot more political clout. A new bill, H.R. 6195, by Republican House Majority Whip Steve Scalise of Louisiana, would repeal the 1954 Johnson Amendment, which for years has threatened to strip away churches tax-exempt nonprofit status if their pastors and clergy members publicly endorse a candidate for office, according to the Christian Post. In other words, the new law would allow a preacher, for instance, to say, "Vote for Trump," or "We believe this particular candidate is the better choice for upholding biblical values in government," without IRS intimidation. Scalise said, for decades now, the Johnson Amendment has limited the ability for a lot of churches and religious organizations and nonprofits to express their views and to exercise their free speech rights and exercise their religious liberty. That is one of the hallmarks of our Constitution. Thousands of pastors agree. There are restrictions, though, such as churches not using their tithes to support political movements if they want to remain a nonprofit. Do you support this new legislation? Priests warned Christians, you might not have a church if you don't vote the right way in November. Is this just another presidential election? Taxes, education, homeland security, all of those are always important issues. But many spiritual leaders are warning believers that there is something much greater at stake in this unique election. We are in a battle for the soul of America, said Father Michael Orsi at a National Day of Remembrance for Aborted Children event on September 10th. Somehow, Christians have come to buy the story that you cannot be political in church. Let me tell you right now, oh yes, you can, and oh yes, you better be. Because you might not have a church to go to if you don't vote the right way in November. No church to go to? What does Orsi mean by that? LifeSite News reports the priests referred back to the formation of Nazi Germany as a warning lesson, while encouraging Christians to buck the intimidation of speaking out politically. Too many of the pastors, practically all in Germany, refuse to speak against National Socialism, Orsi said, and look at the results. Millions of Jews, pastors, priests, homosexuals, gypsies all lost their lives because everyone was afraid. What are you afraid of? A couple of bucks? Your tax-exempt status? What's that going to do to you? Your churches may be closed anyway. Because if a certain party gets elected, this certain party said if the churches do not agree with our interpretation of women's reproductive rights, they'll just have to change their doctrine. Orsi explained further that the next president will have incredible power of religious freedom through the Supreme Court justices appointed. If a certain party gets elected, I can assure you what kind of judges are going to be on those appeals courts, noting that these judges would decide whether the government may force churches and religious institutions to pay for abortion, contraceptions, and abortifacient drugs. In a powerful statement summing up the growing animosity between liberals and conservatives, Orsi said, "Our opponents believe once they destroy the family, once they destroy the churches, they can recreate society in their own image and their own likeness. That, my friends, is not just political, that is diabolical. Get it straight, for crying out loud, the devil is in this." What do you think of Father Orsi's statements about this election? My personal opinion is this. God forbids this. I am mixing religion and politics because I can. I am not an ordained minister. I am not a nonprofit organization. And if I were, it would prevent me from endorsing any politician. I am not asking for money. I don't need money because, like I said, I'm very resourceful with all the free service that is available. The free news press, the free social media, and technology. If you know how to use it, it's free. Olelo, websites, YouTube, Facebook, it's all there. It's free. And what I have learned in business and in experience is that if you have a good product or service, it sells itself. In fact, I would like to rely on the goodwill of Christians and the patriots of America. This is my test to see if Christians are stronger than non-Christians. I want to see if we have more Christians than non-Christians here in Hawaii. I don't need lots of money, and the only endorsement that I really care about and that I need is from my son, Philip KAAIHUE, Mr. Hawaiian. And yes, he's endorsed me. I am a Christian like most of America is. I am a Christian like how our American forefathers were. We are a Christian nation, and our nation leaders have been silenced by the Johnson Act in 1954. Under the Internal Revenue Code, this is what the code states. Organizations are absolutely prohibited from directly or indirectly participating in or intervening in any political campaign on behalf of or in opposition to any candidate for elective public office. Contributions to political campaign funds or public statements of position, verbal or written, made on behalf of the organization in favor of or in opposition to any candidate for public office clearly violates the prohibition against political campaign activity. Violating this prohibition may result in denial or revocation of tax-exempt status and the imposition of certain excise taxes. Now, if you are an ordained minister and you are claiming a non-profit tax exemption, you would lose your license if you endorsed any political candidate. So your rights, freedom of free speech, has been shut. Certain activities or expenditures may not be prohibited depending on the facts and circumstances. For example, certain voter education activities, including presenting public forums and publishing voter education guides, conducted in a nonpartisan manner, do not constitute prohibited political campaign activity. In addition, other activities intended to encourage people to participate in the electoral process, such as voter registration and get the vote drives, will not be prohibited either. Political campaign activity if conducted in a nonpartisan manner. On the other hand, voter education and registration activities with evidence of bias that would favor one candidate over another, oppose a candidate in some manner, or have the effect of favoring a candidate or group of candidates will constitute prohibited participation or intervention. Now, if you want to learn more about this code and how it came about, briefly I will explain to you about the Johnson Act of 1954. It was introduced by a powerful politician at that time who wanted something introduced but was opposed by religious leaders. So he silenced them by this act, which would violate their nonprofit 501c3 status if they opposed a politician or endorsed a politician. However, religious leaders, this is the result of what happens when they silence you. This is an outdated act that GOP nominee Donald Trump plans to do away with, and we so desperately need to have Christianity back into our lives again. All you have to do is look around and see the devastation when God is not with us. We have confusion, we have conflict, we have deliberate defilement of our nation's American Constitution. We have the testing of the integrity of our religious freedom. This is not a time to be silent. This is a time to take a stand for what is righteous, take a stand for our God. Christian leaders need to come together and say who you endorse, or give an inclination, or to talk about it and say that religion and politics does matter, and the legislature will bless you 100 times full. It's not next time, it's now, and this is very important for Hawaii's future, for our families, and for our children. For the sake of America, the laws are changing for the Christian preachers' benefits. We don't want to be against God, do we? We don't want to have a nation or a state that is against God, do we? Another one that the legislature have introduced and has only recently taken effect is the Religious Freedom of Restoration Act. And that is a very important one for us. It's not only to address the LGBT concerns burdening the religious freedom upon our Christian ministers, it also is to protect America's Constitution from being defiled by non-Christians. Have you ever wondered, what if the day came when all our politicians are no longer Christians, and that Christians have become the minority? What would happen if that day came? Would God still be blessing us with good blessings? That is our forefathers prayed for, to have America. We prayed and prayed each day during the beginning of America's establishment. Allow America to come about so we could have the blessings from God. All our forefathers were Christian, Protestants. Those were the true founders of America. I want to talk a little about the LGBT community. I don't have anything against them. They are a big community. And some of them are great fun, outgoing people. Some of them have taught me what it means to be a woman. I find it interesting when I see a man dressed up as a woman. It looks better than me. They teach me how to walk, how to dress, how to put on my makeup. They teach me how to be a woman. I don't want this Religious Freedom of Restoration Act to be mistaken for an act to be against them. It is to strengthen our nation as Christians so that we do not have heathens or pagans among us as leaders. That would be very dangerous to our society and to our America. For instance, heathen Gabbard is testing our religious freedom. I believe so. And has come in through the back door of this establishment and has been very successful. She is liked by millions, not only in our American country, but in the country of India, which has a population of 1.3 billion people. She is well liked in that country and very, very, very popular through social media. It makes it almost impossible for a Christian minority like myself to succeed even here in our own country of 320 million, or in Hawaii of 1.5 million. I cannot compete in a popularity contest against Tulsi Gabbard and a country of 1.3 billion people that supports Hindu Tulsi Gabbard in our 300 million population country of America. It makes me wonder if all her likes on social media are by American people or by India Hindu people. Does anyone know? However, I put my trust in God. If this is God's will, then it will be prevailed. I'm calling on the goodwill of Christians to unite and take a stand for God. This isn't about me. This is for America. This is for Hawaii. This is for God. I'm doing the will of God. And that's all that matters to me. Before coming out of the private sector, no one knew me, but now everyone knows me. And I always have to be vigilant. I want my children to see that I'm taking a big stand for God, hereby running for Congress and talking about religion. I think so. Donald Trump thinks so. And that's why there's been a lot of talk about religion, hasn't there? Now, about Tulsi. The Establishment of Religion clause of the First Amendment means at least this. Neither a state nor the federal government can set up a church, neither can pass laws which aid one religion, aid all religions, or prefer one religion over another. Neither can force nor influence a person to go to or to remain away from church against his will, or force him to profess a belief or disbelief in any religion. No person can be punished for entertaining or professing religious beliefs or disbeliefs, for church attendance or non-attendance. No tax in any amount, large or small, can be levied to support any religious activities or institutions, whatever they may be called, or whatever from they may adopt to teach or practice religion. Neither a state nor the federal government, this is the important part, can openly or secretly participate in the affairs of any religious organizations or groups, and vice versa. In the words of Jefferson, the clause against establishment of religion by law was intended to erect a wall of separation between church and state. Now Tulsi is clearly endorsing her religion and professing by going up in her Hindu garments at government-sponsored events and professing the Hindu religion. She is chanting and singing. She is taking the stage when most Christian women don't. Now that's where the violation is. She's using her congressional powers to endorse her Hindu religion in an official capacity as a congresswoman. This is very evident everywhere she goes, in her speeches, on the internet. There is much evidence of her professing Hinduism. The next part in determining if she is a violation of our First Amendment is if what she does passes the Lemon Law test. In the absence of precisely stated constitutional prohibitions, we must draw lines with reference to the three main evils against which the Establishment Clause was intended to afford protection: sponsorship, financial support, and active involvement in the sovereign in religious activity. Every analysis in this area must begin with consideration of the cumulative criteria developed by the court over many years. Three such tests may be gleaned from our cases. First, the statute must have a secular legislative purpose. Second, its principal or primary effect must be one that neither advances nor inhibits religion. Finally, the statute must not foster an excessive government entanglement with religion. Okay, now I'd like to talk to you a little about the Lemon test. There is a Lemon test. The court's decision in this case established the Lemon test, named after the late plaintiff Alton Lemon, which details the requirements for legislation concerning religion. It is threefold. First, the statute must have a secular legislative purpose, also known as the purpose prong. Two, the principal or primary effect of the statute must not advance nor inhibit religious practice, also known as the effect prong. And then thirdly, the statute must not result in an excessive government entanglement with religious affairs, also known as the entanglement prong. Factors: character and purpose of institution benefited, nature of aid the state provides, and resulting relationship between the government and the religious authority. If any of these prongs are violated, the government's action is deemed unconstitutional under the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment to the United States Constitution. The endorsement test proposed by the United States Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor in the 1984 case of Lynch versus Donnelly asked whether a particular government action amounts to an endorsement of a religion, thus violating the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. According to the test, a government action is invalid if it creates a perception in the mind of a reasonable observer that the government is either endorsing or disapproving of religion. The endorsement test proposed by the United States Supreme Court was Justice Sandra Day O'Connor. Thus, it invalidated and created a perception in the mind of the reasonable observer. So in this situation, it disapproved of the religion. O'Connor wrote, "The Establishment Clause prohibits government from making adherence to a religion relevant in any way to a person standing in the political community. Government can run afoul of that prohibition by endorsement or disapproval of religion. Endorsement sends a message to non-adherents that they are outsiders, not full members of the political community, and an accompanying message to adherents that are insiders, favored members of the political community. The proper inquiry under the purpose prong of Lemon, I submit, is whether the government intends to convey a message of endorsement or disapproval of religion." O'Connor's endorsement test has, on occasion, been subsumed into the Lemon test. In the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals case Doe versus Inbrook, School District 2012, for example, the 7th Circuit, sitting in bank, decided by a vote of 7-3 that a school's practice of holding graduation ceremonies in an evangelical church violated the First Amendment's Establishment Clause. In this context, the 7th Circuit stated that the three-pronged test set forth by the Supreme Court in Lemon versus Kurtzman remains the prevailing analytical tool for the analysis of Establishment Clause claims. It then explained that the endorsement test has become a legitimate part of Lemon's second prong. The endorsement test is often invoked in situations where the government is engaged in expressive activities, such as graduation prayers, religious signs on government property, or religion in the curriculum. In the Supreme Court of the United States, decided June 28, 1971, the case of Alton J. Lemon, Supreme Court Chief Justice Warren Burger founded that for a law to be considered constitutional under the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment, the law must have a legitimate purpose, must not have the primary effect of either advancing or inhibiting religion, and also must not result in an excessive entanglement of government and religion. We may not have the exact law written that would forbid a heathen or a pagan into a federal office, but all the historical writings, rulings, and cases in the Supreme Court of the United States by Supreme Court Chief Justices leads us to believe that having a heathen Hindu dancing in the halls of Congress would be absolutely forbidden. Now remember, this is the first time we've ever had a Hindu held into a higher office of America. As in the Bible story of Samson and Delilah, Samson, who was a man of God, an Israelite who fell in love with a beautiful prostitute of the Palestines. She betrayed Samson and his love for money and riches. But in the end, it was this prostitute, Delilah, that was used to bring justice to God's people. And Samson was returned to the land of the Israelites after he used his final strength to destroy the enemies of God. Thus the story of Samson and Delilah. The separation of church and state. Is there a separation of church and state? Yes, to a certain point and to a certain extent, you need to ask yourself if it's possible for our entire government to one day become non-Christians. And if so, how? And for your information, our Hawaii representatives right now are all 100% non-Christians. Yes, that day has come in Hawaii. Now, what if that was to happen to all of America? That would be a devastating and tragic day for America. So we really have to prevent that from happening, even here in Hawaii. And it begins now. The Bible says hell would be at our footsteps. And it's our responsibility as Americans to stand up for God. When someone says that politics and religion doesn't mix, well, that's another misconstrued concept. Then ask why our forefathers, Benjamin Franklin, at the age of 86 years old, stood up and said that we should start Congress with a prayer. These are his words. Benjamin Franklin, then in his 80s, rose to his feet and made the proposal that Congress open their sessions with prayers. Yet on that occasion, the God, the religion, and the sacred scriptures that Franklin had in mind were certainly not the God, religion, and scripture of Hinduism. Here was his proposal in his own words. In this situation of this assembly, groping as if it were in the dark to find political truth, and scarce able to distinguish it when presented to us, how has it happened, sir, that we have not hereto once thought of humbly applying to the Father of lights, James 1:17, to eliminate our understanding in the beginning of the contest with Britain? When we were sensible of danger, we had daily prayer in this room for divine protection. Our prayers, sir, were heard, and they were graciously answered. And have we now forgotten that powerful friend? Or do we imagine we no longer need his assistance? I have lived, sir, a long time, and the longer I live, the more convincing proofs, Acts 1:3, I see of this truth that God governs in the affairs of men, Daniel 4:17. And if a sparrow cannot fall to the ground without his notice, Matthew 10:29, is it probable that an empire can rise without his aid? We have been assured, sir, in the sacred writings that except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. Psalms 127:1. I firmly believe this, and I also believe that without his concurring aid, we shall succeed in this political building no better than the builders of Babel. Genesis 1:1 or 11. We shall be divided by our partial local interests. Our projects will be confounded, and we ourselves shall become a reproach and byword down to future ages. Psalms 44:13-14, Jeremiah 24:9. Therefore beg leave no to move that henceforth prayers, imploring the assistance of heavens and its blessings on our deliberations, be held in this assembly every morning before we proceed to business, and that one or more of the clergy of this city be requested to officiate in that service. And this was 1787, and those were the words of Benjamin Franklin. Now, Abraham Lincoln stated, I believe the Bible is the best gift God has ever given to man. All the good of the Savior of the world is communicated to us through the book. President Abraham Lincoln. On Monday, March 4th, 1861, Lincoln delivered his first inaugural address after the oath of office was administered by Chief Justice Roger Taney. Lincoln's speech addressed the national crisis of the Southern secession from the Union. Lincoln had hoped to resolve the conflict peacefully without a civil war. During the address, Lincoln stated, intelligence, patriotism, Christianity, and a firm reliance on him who was never yet forsaken this favored land are still competent to adjust in the best way all our present difficulty. So there you go. Our past presidents and forefathers talked about God, Christianity in the middle of politics. So why wouldn't we talk about religion today? In the middle of our crisis, why wouldn't we ask God for his spiritual guidance to guide us through today's crisis? So where is that statement? Religion and politics don't mix. Or the separation of church and state? No. You're absolutely wrong. There is a mix of politics and religion all throughout these years. It was only that in 1956, the Johnson Act prohibited Christian leaders who are exempt from the tax-exempt 5031C that shut the preachers up, preventing them from endorsing any political leader, and Donald Trump is going to change that because they are the majority of our voters. And we can see from first-hand experience right here in Hawaii what happens when we take away the preacher's right to freedom of free speech. And now what do we have here in Hawaii? We have 100% non-Christians that run our federal office in Washington, D.C. This is who we send when non-Christians to the Oval. Now, we're going to talk a little about Donald Trump. Donald Trump's campaign has been losing ground among independent voters in recent weeks due to a series of well-publicized mistakes. The GOP presidential nominee has tripled down the one base of political support that was steadfastly remained with him, white evangelical voters, by promising to dismantle the laws that separate church and state in America. It is a provocative move designed to energize a key conservative demographic vital to the National Republican Party, but one that could potentially anger moderate and independent voters once it becomes more widely known. In a startling, off-the-cuff speech to a gathering of pastors in Florida last week, Trump threw away his prepared remarks and promised over and over again to give evangelical churches the power to essentially spend unlimited sums of tax-exempt money on politics. Nearly 80% of evangelicals already support Trump. It is one of his largest supportive demographics and one of GOP's most reliable voting blocs. I said, I am going to take this into my own hands, and I'm going to figure a way that we will get you back your freedom of speech. Trump told the evangelical pastors, it will be so great for the evangelicals, for the pastors, for the ministers, for the priests of America. Trump promised that one of his first efforts as president would be to dismantle laws that keep Christian churches from spending tax-exempt money on political advocacy. He promised to vigorously attack a law established in the 1950s from legislation sponsored by then Senator Lyndon Johnson, amending the U.S. tax codes that prevents tax-exempt organizations such as churches or educational institutions from endorsing political candidates. The ban on 501c3 charitable organizations from engaging in political advocacy has come to be known as the Johnson Amendment. If I get elected president, one of the absolute first things I'm going to do is to totally knock out the Johnson Amendment. He said, the power you have is so enormous. It's not like you represent 2% of the country and it's going to be difficult. You're probably 75, 80% if you want to put your full weight. I mean, can you imagine if all your people start calling up the local congressman and the local senator? Trump promised the evangelical pastors that by abolishing the prohibition on churches spending tax-exempt money on political advocacy, it would reverse the slow, steady decline in church attendance and public attitudes toward Christians' beliefs in the United States. And if you look at what's happened to religion, if you look at what's happening in Christianity, and you look at the number of people going to churches, and evangelicals know this also, it's not on this kind of a climb. It's on this kind of climb of a slow and steady in the wrong direction, he said. A lot of it has to do with the fact that you've been silenced. You've been silenced like a child has been silenced. Trump told the pastors that evangelical voters would make the difference in key battleground states like Florida, Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and even Hawaii. And if white evangelical Christians put him in the White House, he promised to return the favor. You have to do something that will be earth-shaking, he said. I literally mean it, earth-shaking. You got to get your people out to vote. Trump, whose religious background consists of childhood visits to Sunday school, also told the evangelical pastors that he has their best hope in the 2016 presidential election. He paraphrased evangelical megachurch pastor Robert Jeffress, who said, the Bible has called for a strong man such as Trump in the White House, and his characterization of him to make the point. Donald Trump may not be perfect, but he knows how to win. Maybe he's not as good, and maybe he's not as perfect on the Bible, Trump said, quoting Jeffress, but I did go to Sunday school for many years. I want to tell you, okay? He said he may not be perfect, but he's ours. Much of this media coverage of the Trump candidacy in the past few weeks has focused on mistakes, like his remark on Second Amendment people and Hillary Clinton, but Trump's stunning proposal to change the 501c3 tax rules so that white evangelical churches can spend money on political advocacy as an arm of the national GOP isn't a mistake. It's a move designed to save his presidential campaign at the expense of a time-honored principle of American democracy, the Johnson Amendment, and the agency to silence Christians. So that concludes tonight's show, our second episode on the 144,000 Angel Network. Thank you for tuning in. But before we leave, I would like to have my son, Philip KAAIHUE, he wants to sing a song for you. Son over here. Go ahead. He will finish up by singing a song for you, for Hawaii, for America.
Today is the first day of the rest of our lives. Tomorrow is too late to pretend everything's alright now. I'm not getting any younger as long as you don't get any older. I'm not gonna think that yesterday never was bloodshot, deadbeat, lack of sleep. Making your mascara bleed tears down your face, leaving traces of my mistakes. When I say, if I promise go to church on Sunday, will you go with me on Friday night? If you live in me, I'll die for you and this compromise. I hereby solemnly swear to tell the whole truth, and nothing but the truth is what I'll never hear from you now. Trust is a dirty word that comes from only such a liar, but respect is something I will learn. If you have faith, bloodshot, deadbeat, lack of sleep, making your mascara bleed tears down your face, leaving traces of my mistakes. When I say, if I promise go to church on Sunday, will you go with me on Friday night? If you live in me, I'll die for you and this compromise. If I promise go to church on Sunday, will you go with me on Friday night? If you live in me, I'll die for you and this compromise. Let's go! Go to church on Sunday, will you go with me on Friday night? If you live with me, I'll die for you on this compromise. If I promise go to church on Sunday, will you go with me on Friday night? If you live with me, I'll die for you on this compromise. And this compromise, just a compromise. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Philip. That's my son, Philip KAAIHUE. I'm so proud that he can play the guitar. Thank you, Hawaii, for tuning in. Today is October 10, 2016. I am the United States of America candidate for Congress, running for District 2, and I'm also running in the special election. And I really would appreciate your support. And all I'm asking for you is to vote for a Christian, vote to restore Christianity back to Hawaii, and I can almost guarantee we will be